What kind of economic systems are best at allowing us to exercise the fact that we are created in the image and likeness of God?
Now keep in mind that if you take tiny steps towards any goal, it's just a matter of when you're going to reach it.
Scarcity is the first lesson of economics. Now, the first lesson of politics is to forget the first lesson of economics.
If you don't provide real, actual value to people in exchange for the money that you're asking for in return, you will lose over time.
We can see the economy as a social web that God has created for people to serve each other with their work.
We have the Word of God that provides for us a foundation for knowledge, for truth, for beauty, for goodness, for dignity and value in human beings. We have the Word of God that provides for us things like this. Ready? Thou shalt not steal.
Ethics on the legitimacy of wealth and entrepreneurship individually. Secondly, postmillennial eschatology, that is, the kingdom of God expands across the earth before Jesus comes back in final judgment. And the link to get those two together is the idea of the pursuit of self-interest leading to widespread economic growth and social transformation.
So if you could imagine a winter in southern Illinois, now there's no moisture in the air, it's just freezing cold, makes your hands crack, there's never any snow. We're traveling down the highway, we're headed to a concert venue. All we know is that it's called the Vineyard, and we've got this address. So we're supposed to play this show out here. We've never been there before. We drive several hours. We pull up to this auto body shop, and I'm double checking the address, and I'm like, man, this cannot be the concert venue. This is a car shop. But there's like a crudely drawn sign at the front of it that said the Vineyard. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the concert venue. So it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like cornfield nowhere. And we're like, is anybody even going to show up here? There's no cars in the parking lot. So we start unloading the gear. It's freezing cold. We are greeted at the door by somebody who lets us in, set up all the gear. It's literally an auto body shop, and there's no heat in the building, so we leave our jackets on. But close to start time for the show, tons and tons of teenagers and kids show up, wanting to hear metal. And we're like, dude, where are these people coming from? And they packed this garage that we're in, and they cued the lights, and we're all still wearing our jackets, and we're like, let's play this show. And so like we played, and it was freezing cold, but it was one of the funnest shows ever that we had. And the photographs and the video from it were really cool just because of the setting. And the part that was most impactful to me was actually the drive home from that. We kind of like learned a lesson to not judge. This is so cliche. Don't judge a book by its cover. But it was such a fun show and such an unexpected location. The drive home was silent. Somebody started playing, like a Hillsong playlist. I mean, we're talking this 10 years ago, so Hillsong was still huge, and everybody was okay with the theology, I guess, at the time.
Things have changed.
Things have changed. But this worship's playing, and then one by one, all the guys in the band just start singing along with this worship song. And we had never really sang worship together like that in this quiet drive home. And I'll never forget that. It was such a worshipful experience, and we really bonded over that show and that drive home. And it was something I'll never forget ever.
That's so awesome. I'm always interested, it's always been interesting to me, the stories that bands have, just from traveling, from all the experiences that they have. I love listening to that kind of stuff, and we'll probably get into that in a little bit. But just because I don't know a ton about your backstory in music, I know you were in kind of metal music, heavier rock music. But was it like a Christian rock band, or was it kind of secular and that's why this kind of worship experience surprised you?
That's a great question. From the beginning, when I formed a band, and you're right, total metalhead. I love metal. When I formed the band, I was very clear to the rest of the guys in the band. I was like, hey, I want this to be a ministry. I want the lyrical content to reflect what Scripture says. You don't have to recite verses, but I want it to reflect what the Bible stands for. And so I wanted our lifestyles too, while we were in the band, to be in line with that as well. So I made that very clear when I was forming the band, and I was selective about who I wanted to write music with.
Yep. Man, I'm so excited about this episode. Let me do the intro real quick. So, welcome back to Christ in Capital, everybody. This is the show that wants to encourage you to love God, love neighbor, and build something. I'm so excited about this episode because when I started this podcast, my original thoughts was that we were going to talk about economics and theology and kind of business, entrepreneurship and stuff like that, macro level economics, worldview kind of stuff. And we've done that over the past couple episodes. But what I really want to do is start bringing on people to talk about the boots on the ground, business, the business stuff, the entrepreneurship, the getting dirty in the, getting down into the dirt of growing a business, starting a side hustle, those kinds of things. And so today we're going to talk about the music business. And I have brought on Stephen Lauderbach. I did pronounce that right, didn't I?
Nailed it right on the head.
Awesome. So Stephen is he is one of the co-hosts of the Despite Popular Belief podcast. Despite Popular Belief is a podcast dedicated to kind of bringing the biblical worldview into all different areas of life, because it realizes that the world is full of opinions and agendas, and we want to get the not the popular opinion, the biblical worldview aspects of all these different topics. You guys, you run the gamut on your show. Like the topics, I mean, aliens, economics, music, comedy, everything. You guys talk about everything, and every show is just so entertaining. And then on top of that, you guys are starting a guild, a content creator guild, where you have bloggers and podcasters and other content creators, kind of under this umbrella of Manifold Ministries, right?
Yeah, that's it. And believe it or not, I've got a whole list of topics that we haven't touched yet. Bigfoot's not on there, but everything before and after him is.
Yeah. And it's so good. We've been in contact over the past couple months. I've been on your show a few times to talk about economics and things like that. But I was super excited to get you on the show to talk about the music business. I think there's a lot of people, here in America, we have so many opportunities available to us to pursue our own little projects, to bring in extra money. And we have a lot of, musicians, people who are really good at making music, playing instruments. And there's a big market out there for the people, the small guys, to get in on the ground level. You don't have to necessarily be, picked up by a scout and be on Billboard's top 100 the next day. That's, right. There's lots of different opportunities. And so we want to talk about that. But first, I want to go back.
Yeah. I
want to go back to your story real quick. Christian metal. That used to, in the early, I'm going to say like early 2000s, around there, Christian metal was like, Christianity was leading the metal scene, or they were like a huge influence on it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the front end of that, I would say there was a good solid 10 years of super good Christian metal. Obviously, there's scandal woven in and out, but like what facet of human interaction doesn't have that?
Right.
Some of like the biggest influences for me were like For Today, using imagery of spiritual warfare. Like, what's more metal than warfare? Okay,
That's
well,
right.
I'll tell you what, spiritual warfare.
That's right.
There's just something about yelling the lyrics, like, hell, fear me. You'll see my face on the battleground.
Yep.
Like, yelling that into a microphone, and it's heavy. Like, man, that's just, man, I got the adrenaline's pumping in me right now. I was
That's
thinking
right.
about it.
I mean,
I'm so
God,
passionate about it.
God has built thunder into the soundtrack of His world. That's you know, when we think of God creating the world, or Jesus coming incarnate and defeating death and the grave. That's not a Flight of the Bumblebee kind of music.
Right.
Like, you don't. That's not the
Right.
soundtrack that goes with that. So I want to give you an idea of my musical interests. I'm a rock guy as well, but
Sure.
we've discussed briefly about how rock doesn't really mean anything. The term or the
Right.
categorization of rock doesn't mean anything nowadays in today's music scene. It used to be that some rock music was played on the radio. Like, I got, in middle school and in high school, I think is when I got into Fall Out Boy and Paramore and those kind of bands, or like pop punk kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they are played on the radio, or they used to be, but nowadays it's not.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, you've got bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Sublime that may be categorized under the rock music. And then you've got
Sure.
Fall Out Boy, Paramore, Green Day, and then you've got A Day to Remember, and there's a band called I Prevail. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Oh yeah.
Then you've got, down the road from that, you've got Under Oath and, Demon Hunter and August Burns Red and all these guys. And there's this
Sure.
huge spectrum of music that we might put under the rock category, but
Yeah.
they're completely different kinds of music. And I wanted to get to get your thoughts on that, and what kind of, on that spectrum, where was your band?
Yeah, classifying the genre is so tricky. If you know a little bit about music theory, there are some things that you can identify clearly as, oh, this is country music, or oh, this is R&B, or oh, this is blues. But the interesting thing about rock is that it feels like a combination of, whatever the artist's favorite influences were. But then the drums driving the beat, essentially make it rock. And then the vocals kind of became the icon of what rock is. So if you could imagine, I guess rock in its purest forms, what's an example? Well, maybe the Black Keys. Just basic music, simple music, but it's rock.
Mm-hmm.
Then you break down into subgenres where you've got indie rock.
Yeah.
Well, indie rock's got a lot of reverb on the vocals. We're looking at Telecaster guitars, so they're a little more trebly, and less bass. And then each subgenre breaks down into more subgenres until you start getting into what we would call underground music, which are non-mainstream bands.
Yeah.
And that's where some of my favorite music is in the underground. It's this is an offshoot of that genre, an offshoot of that genre, an offshoot of that one, and so on.
Yep.
And I think that's where metal came from. So I guess the easiest evolution you could see from it would be rock turns into hard rock, which would be metal music without screaming.
Yeah.
And then hard rock turns into metal, which is heavy music with screaming.
Right.
You've got your subgenres of metal music as well too, but that's a whole different story. So we were metal. We were heavy.
Okay.
We liked the yelling. We would do singing on some of the choruses and stuff, just because we wanted to cater a little bit to both audiences. Because the biggest thing that people make fun of metal is you can't understand the lyrics.
Right.
That is true for a lot of bands. You can't understand what this person's yelling. But there is some though where you can actually understand what the person's yelling.
Yeah.
Just haven't dug deep enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of along that kind of trajectory, do those underground, like the guys in the underground scene, what's their like business plan? I don't want to get too like cut and dry, but like,
Sure.
Is it just a hobby? Is it just for fun, or do they really see like a way to make that like a lucrative kind of thing? Can they? Are there bands in that kind of underground scene that have, made it to where, all of the band members can make that a maybe half-time or full-time thing?
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a great question. So just because I was never, how do I say this? I did not become celebrity from this, okay? I'll just put it like that.
Yeah.
From my perspective, the bands that were in the underground were passionate about music. They didn't care about making a massive living doing this thing. They did it because they loved it. So there was a passion for that, but there was also a passion for the people who were coming to the show, the people who were consuming the music. A lot of them would use this as a platform to speak out against suicide and self-harm, or like fill in the blank. So like there were people who saw this as their mission to reach the people who come to these underground shows. People who come to the underground shows are people who slip through the cracks of cliche things or successful things like rock that you would hear on the radio or pop music you'd hear on the radio. They're coming to a no-name bar to hear a no-name band because they have a unique taste in music.
Right.
They're a unique individual. So you'll see a lot of underground bands, they love that. They have a passion for those people. And so while it is technically a hobby, it's a dream. You know what I mean? It's a passion.
Yep. It's a ministry.
Fueled by it.
And
and
I think, and I don't have a ton of experience in the, that kind of that area, but it's a culture as well. Like it's a culture of people who, that kind of music speaks to them. They connect with it. And you see that with lots of other genres as well. Like you get the, we used to make fun of it, but like the emo scene, that's,
sure.
Another kind of people. And we could talk about kind of the connection there and like what's the motivations, but it's like, it's not just the music. And I don't want to get too into the transcendental nature of music and how it, it shows how, the glory in God's creation. That conversation is awesome and it's there, but it does show that music is not just, sound waves vibrating throughout the universe that causes, synapses in our brain to do something that causes our tear ducts to leak. Kind of, it's a transcendental thing that speaks to you. Not only that, but metal music can make you lift more weights than you normally can.
Oh yeah, it pumps adrenaline. It does.
Yeah. I was running this morning and I was listening to some kind of heavier. Don't judge me, but I was listening to A Day to Remember and I Prevail, which I don't normally. But
I'm not judging at all. Not judging.
But they when you're sitting there, if you're lifting weights and a breakdown is coming, you start your weights on that breakdown because it will give you that adrenaline, that pump. And it shows.
Yeah, the anticipation. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just shows that music has a transcendental nature and it affects us physically as well. But I don't want to get too far down that rabbit trail because we can go really far. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the music business. We've talked about the rock scene, hard rock, all that stuff. But as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, Christ in Capital is about, getting people out and doing and building things. And there's like we said, there's a ton of opportunity in our, in the American marketplace for musicians to go out and actually start pursuing their hobbies and their dreams, and to create another source of income aside from their 9-to-5 job. And so, how, in your experience, how does someone like that, an aspiring solo artist or a small band, start? If they're just in their living room and they've been, they've been playing for a couple years and they're like, yeah, I'm pretty good, I know a lot of songs, and I want to start something where I can, start making a little bit of money. How does that even start? Like, what's the first step in that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, because we're in a digital world, you need a way to get your music recorded. And it's not as simple as just, let's hit record and play this song. Now, either you have a really good talent at the music that you make, and you just need a high quality recording of that. Great. That's great. Yeah, get there. Now you need to save up for some recording gear, because honestly, it's not practical to buy studio time, especially if you're an amateur getting started. It's just not practical to spend $65+ an hour at a local studio downtown. And that's not even like the famous ones.
Right.
So you need to invest in gear that will at least let you capture a good version of what you're able to do. Now, let's say that you're not great, you're not amazing at the music you make. Learn how to record yourself in such a way that you can make yourself sound better than you actually are.
Right.
So, like, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but Lady Gaga is kind of like that. She's kind of that. The producers make her sound better than she actually is. aside from the scandalous things she wears and whatever, like, that's a whole different thing. But like, there are some musicians that producers are able to make sound better than they actually are.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you can find out which of those you are and record accordingly.
Yeah, and that should be an encouragement to people who are kind of shy or not as confident about their abilities. Like there are bands out there, obviously the bands who and the musicians who've made it big, lots of times they're like amazing at their instruments. But I was just listening to the lead singer of Shinedown. He was talking the other day on a podcast I was listening to, and he said that he's a good musician, but he said he could find people off the streets who are better than he is. And it just goes to show that don't let obviously you want to be good at what you do, but don't let your insecurities about that be the thing that holds you back from getting out there and actually doing something. A lot of this stuff is just people being able to communicate with their audience, like their market, communicate the music that they love to that a specific audience. And I think that's encouraging. I think that's encouraging for some people who may be contemplating a music career, but starting a music thing, but are kind of shy because they think that they're not the best. And look at all these top Billboard 100 artists, they're so much better. I'm not even at that level yet. It's like, just chill. You can you have something. Just we can you can sort that out as you go. Just get out there and do it.
Getting started is a huge step. You've got to start somewhere. I would say another huge factor, because a lot of people connect online, is build relationships online. You need to develop a community now. Now, what's going to draw a community is a polished product.
Right.
You can't just throw some junk online and say, I hope some people check on this. It's like,
right.
There is so much oversaturation in the market.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing needs to stand out somehow, whether it's through quality because it sounds really good, or whether it's unique. It hasn't been done before, which is super rare for you to find something that hasn't been done before. But
have you ever heard of the band Dance Gavin Dance?
Yes, I have. Love those guys.
Yeah, their sound is so unique. It's like the lead singer's like always in falsetto, or at least that's what it seems like. I don't know exactly what vocal training he's gone through, but I love those guys.
Yeah, there's nobody like them. That's one of those genres that's like unclassifiable, but I mean, they do have like that flair of metal still, but it's like it's groovy. Like I know
Yeah.
that's such a not cool word,
No, it is
but
though.
like you have to hear them. It's got a groove to it.
Yeah.
They're like the best parts of jam band meets metal meets groove. I don't know.
Right.
You got to check it out because there's nothing like it.
I know it almost gives me like a funk. Like there's some funk in there
Yeah.
almost. But
Right.
just as a caveat, to everyone, they are not a Christian band. They're not. Some of their
Right.
subject matter is a little iffy, but
Dicey.
but yeah, but the music is really good. So
I saw them live too, and like they nail every note.
Really?
Every note. They hit every single one. Yeah, I saw them in Cleveland a couple of years ago.
That's insane.
Man, they are good performers.
Yeah, they have to be. They're like there's so much. You can tell the music that they're playing is really complex, very rhythmic. Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
But so we talked about how you need to have a good recording for small bands need to have a good recording, and you need to set yourself apart. Have a unique sound. But to circle back to the whole social media thing, so assuming that that's kind of the main playing field for bands nowadays, what are some of like the platforms that bands try to get their stuff on? Do the platforms pay well? Like what is the kind of pay scheme like? How does that work?
Yeah, so like there's two sides to it. There is like the social media in terms of like Facebook and Instagram, but then there's also this social element to platforms like SoundCloud and Spotify. iTunes is still hanging in there, but like Spotify is coming in clutch with just being able to be a universal platform for anybody. So like you've got those two sides of pretty much the internet where you could make money being a musician. So like on the Facebook, Instagram side, really your only best bet is to pay for an ad. You could do a $5 ad, $10 ad, whatever. Like you could pay as much as you want to get your advertising out.
Yeah.
This is different than it was 10 years ago. 10
Which
years
is when
ago,
you guys
Facebook,
were. That's when you guys were in it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like networking on social media was so much easier back then because people weren't spamming nearly as much as they are now, and you didn't have bots like creating fake fans and jacking up your numbers. So in the past, however many friends you had on Facebook, whenever you made a post, it went to every single person on that list home feed, so they saw everything you put out. Now today there's an algorithm that like selectively chooses, out of your friend group or your fan base, who gets to see what you posted today based on how much interaction it's getting. The interaction is counted in likes and comments and reshares. So like there's this complex algorithm that pumps your content out to specific people instead of all of your people.
Right.
That's a way to corner you into purchasing advertising space on Facebook, on Instagram. So like that's been different for musicians in today's world. Now you jump over to like the music platforms like Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud. You can pay for the advertising there too, but you at least get royalties on these platforms. Okay. I just looked up some numbers, and this came out February 2020, that one play on Spotify grants the musician 0.006 cents, and that's just for like a basic listener, basic user. If a premium user listens on Spotify, that play is worth 0.0084 cents to the musician. So it does increase a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you were to pump the numbers in, what was it? It was like 100 million plays on a song, that's a massive listen count. That's a big one on Spotify. The musician only walks away with like $11,000 for that song at the end of the day. But somebody else pointed out to me that there's usually more than one songwriter in the studio and more than one producer, especially for these big name artists, you have to divvy up your royalties amongst that whole crew before you get your cut. I didn't even think about that.
Wow.
See, because I never got to that level.
Yeah.
But that's the other side of social media, so that part's different too. Have you heard of the album Sleepify by Wolfpack?
I have not.
So this was and this was in our lifetime. This band, it's a funk band, it's called Wolfpack. They're super awesome. Their fans are really cool too. You go to a show, it's just a really awesome experience. I've never had a chance to go to it, but I've seen the live footage and it just looks awesome.
Yeah.
So they wanted a way to provide a free tour for all of their fans, all of their listeners. But the only way they could do it was to, fund it themselves. And they figured out a loophole in Spotify in that they created this, I think it was 12 tracks. I think it was 12 tracks of dead silence. And they called the album Sleepify. So it's literally no sound. And they told all their fans to press play on Spotify, listen to the album Sleepify on repeat through the night while they're sleeping so they could rack up plays and rack up royalties. And they raised over $20,000 in royalties, and they were able to fund a free tour across the United States for all their fans. It was $0 admission at all of those shows. Now, Spotify caught on to what they were doing.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't have that loophole anymore.
Rules. Yeah, because anybody could do that then.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's new rules to Spotify. You're not allowed to have tracks of silence. But Spotify let the band Wolfpack keep the money they raised from it.
Well, they helped them find a hole in their system. So yeah, it's like consulting services, right? At least they should get paid for it. There you go.
That's it, man. That's totally it. And they're legends for it. It's one of my favorite stories from the music industry.
I'm gonna have to look them up. We need some Christian funk bands. I'm not sure if there are any.
Shoot, man. I can't think of any.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. How it just we need to be creative. As Christians, we need to be representing our Father, our Creator, and be creative like that. I'm not saying we need to find loopholes and exploit the system, but just think outside the box and do something different. Whether it's in your art or in your business, whatever. That's just a really cool story that I think shows that they were thinking outside of the box, and we should too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it would take an expert to do that. And I think becoming an expert at what you do is a good goal.
Yes, exactly. Have you seen those? Since we've been in quarantine, I've seen a lot of living room concert kind of things where you've got Zoom. It's not. I don't know if it's Zoom, but it's you've got the video conferencing systems and bands. Musicians playing together, and they're performing these concerts through these video recording platforms. Have you seen any of those?
I have, yeah, and I believe they've even been able to charge admission for some of them. It looks cool. I have not participated in any.
That's awesome. That's so cool. We've come a long way to get kind of video and audio able to sync up like that across long distances. That's an accomplishment. I think it's really, really neat.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Because shoot, what year was it? Everything's 10 years ago. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Skype was the go-to for video chat, and I remember it being super laggy. The sound quality was garbage.
Yeah.
Zoom has skyrocketed as a video platform. This is just a quick side note because I know you appreciate finances. I just found this out. The guys from Duck Dynasty, the Robertson family. Who's the chubbier one who always wears that American flag bandana?
Phil. Or no, not Phil. Willie.
Yeah, the main guy. So he's played the stocks here and there. He was already successful with Duck Commander. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he had purchased a ton of stock in Zoom before the virus happened, he just saw Zoom as like a, something he wanted to invest in. And I guess it jumped from like, oh my gosh, what was it? The value jumped from, was it 20? I'm drawing a blank on the numbers, but it was like, it jumped up to 200 million users.
Yeah.
Since the virus.
It came out of nowhere.
And it came out of nowhere, and he made another fortune on Zoom stock.
That's awesome. I mean, all power to him. That's awesome. Like, you take the risks, you get the reward. And that's awesome.
Yeah, he saw it. Anyways, I digress. Sorry.
So just to kind of close out, I wanted to get your story with these kind of episodes where we talk to people about their projects and side businesses or whatever they're doing to make money kind of on the side and things like that. I want to get people, give people the backstory behind these things, because I think those can be really encouraging a lot of times, just to get people kind of encouraged to go out and do something. So how did you get into metal music? And then when did you decide, or how did you decide that you wanted to start the band? Because if I'm not mistaken, you were kind of like the front runner of like developing the band or pulling the band together. Mm-hmm. How did that all play out?
Yeah. So I remember vividly how I got into metal. I didn't have cable TV, so I had there was like a family friend who recorded on VHS tapes for us. There was a channel called TVU, I think, and late at night they had this metal show called The Battery, and it was a Christian station. They played Christian metal in the middle of the night. It was just music videos, and so I'm watching this recorded VHS tape from a family friend, and music video comes on for As I Lay Dying, Darkest Nights, and it's like, oh, why are these guys yelling? This is okay. This is interesting. And then the guitar harmony, I think it comes in like 3/4 of the way through the song or right at the end. The guitar harmony blew me away. It was like, whoa, how did they do that? And so I did research online. Like, how do you play guitar harmony? I thought it was the coolest thing. And I just fell down the rabbit hole of music theory behind metal, and I loved it. It was fun to play. It was fun to learn. It was hard to learn. I liked the challenge. I grew to like the aggression in the vocals. It was an outlet. It wasn't something that was like feeding a monster. It was like a adrenaline release. Yeah. It felt good. I loved that. I loved the energy. So started growing my hair out, started trying to learn how to play faster. So that's how I got started. I want to say I was I was probably an early teen. I might have even been 13, 14, something like that.
Okay. So you've been in this for a while.
Oh yeah. I love it. I'd play any genre, I filled in for house bands, filled in for other guitarists, played other music, but
what instrument do you play? I should ask that.
Oh, I play guitar. It's all good. Yeah, no, I play guitar.
Like lead?
I know how to write the sheet music for just about any instrument, which comes in handy in the studio. So we live in a digital world. A lot of the instrumentation that I record now is digital, so I just write out the music for piano. I can't physically play piano, but I understand the mechanics of piano and the chord structures. Right. And I can program that stuff into the computer, and I don't have to physically play it. But guitar is my main one. I've been playing that for how many years? And you did the 18?
You did the intro to your podcast, didn't you?
Yeah, yep. I did that here in my studio at the house, just for fun. I mean, it was just a piece of a song that didn't get used on an album, and so I just turned it into a podcast intro.
So if listeners want to hear it, go and subscribe to this Despite Popular Belief podcast. Anyways, so when did you decide that you wanted to do the band thing? What kicked that off?
Yeah, so I played in a couple of no-name bands in high school. Just played on weekends at basement shows or whatever. Nothing notable, nothing noteworthy. It was just kind of building my experience. And then I got to college, we're Illinois, Southern Illinois. Started going to college out at Greenville University, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a metal band out here. We need some metal here out in the cornfield. There was no metal out there. So I just started looking for other musicians. Hey, you like metal? You want to start this band or whatever? And I accumulated the first draft of the band To Every Cynic, and the town did a little newspaper article about us. And next thing you know it, there's like 4 and 5 local metal bands just popping up and starting to play shows. We started a local metal scene. It was really fun.
That's awesome.
We went through lots of lineup changes just because, some of the guys going to modeling, some of the guys going to physics. It was just, everybody just had their own passions and dreams and stuff.
Modeling and physics naturally comes from hard metal bands, right?
Yeah. So I stuck through all the lineup changes because I was the one that started it, and I didn't want to let it die. But one of the other solid members ended up coming in, I want to say maybe 1 or 2 years into the process. My friend Nick Robertson, I'm still very close to him, but he ended up becoming the vocalist so that I could fall back to guitar, which was what my main passion was. So the first year and a half, I was doing the vocals, and then I switched back to guitar, which we collaborated with all the songwriting and stuff. I only stay in touch with a handful of the guys I played music with, but that's how we got started. And I guess the dissolving of the band ended up being that we all started getting married.
Oh, priorities, right?
You know what, though? I don't regret any of it. I love the memories and the stories that we got from playing in the band for those handful of years.
Mm-hmm.
I love my family even more than that. I like being a dad. I like being a husband. It's fun. It's rewarding, and I could still play in the studio for fun. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a hobby,
right?
And I can make podcast intros, for myself and save some money.
That's cool. Using your talents from an alternative life, bringing it into another area. I think that's really cool. Man, this was such an awesome episode. I love listening to stories, like people's backstories and kind of how they got into what they're doing. We're gonna do more of that. I hope you feel honored that this is the very first episode of that for Christ in Capital. I hold you in very high esteem. That's why I picked you as the first one. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming on. I will include links to, Despite Popular Belief, Manifold Ministries, and maybe even a YouTube link or two for the band in the show notes, so people can go check it out.
Cool. Yeah, sounds great.
So everybody, I hope you're encouraged by this. If you're a musician, if you're into the music business, be encouraged to just go out and do it. Just take that first step. Go and start building something. We as Christians are called to represent our Creator, reflect our Creator in the world, making beautiful art, building businesses, doing things productive that are making His world better, pulling out the potential of the material world that He's given us. So hope that's encouraging. If you guys would go and subscribe to the show, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. When you do that and you leave a comment, it does something to the algorithms that pushes us up the ladder a little bit. I don't know. Stephen, you could probably tell me exactly what it does, but I know that if you leave a comment, it's good for me. So go and do that, and we will talk to you guys next time. Until then, go love God, love neighbor, and build something. Thanks.